Crazy Talks with Wise People with Mary Angela as your host, as usual. Well, look at our guest. He's a second timer because he's so good. And a lot of you would like him back. So let's all welcome. Well, you already know who he is, right? But let me just refresh your memory just in case you forgot. He's a producer, inventor, designer. He's a dad. He's a husband. And most importantly, a devout Christian. Okay. And no wonder, no wonder he's so creative because he's got the DNA of Christ. Because remember, during our the previous podcast, um, where he guested, he invented, well, their ice cream suckers. You still remember this kind of ice cream scooper that he invented? Yeah. And if you still remember that he invented um, a sort of a device to make his daughter see again. Oh, that's the kind of father you have. How'd you like to have a father like him? All right, without further ado, here is Hans Hartman. Hans.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much, Dr. Mary. It's great to be back, and thank you very much for asking me to come back again and talk about my film Rage Creek. Um,
Yes. Yes, yes,
it's
yes, yes. The reason why we were not able to talk about Rage Creek on his first podcast is because he's got a lot of inventions. And, we would like to separate inventions and art. Okay, science, that was a science version of himself. Now, the art version of himself. He produced Rage Creek. What is Rage Creek?
well, Rage Creek is a picture that I'm producing right now, and people don't realize that producing a picture is a lot of work
Movie.
before
Yeah, it's a
anything
movie.
ever
Yeah,
happens.
movie.
Yes, it's a movie. It's a feature film,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it should be a little under 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it has to deal with relationships and humanity. And the backdrop is the American Civil War. So
Mm-hmm.
the Civil War was a time that a lot of people had very strong feelings about the way the country was being run, kind of like the way it is today. So Rage Creek is a very poignant film for any time, and you can watch this film when after we make it, and it's really gonna talk to everybody because it's all about tolerance and understanding that people are people, no matter how they look, how they seem, who they are, where they're from, what they're doing,
You're
but
right.
they're people. And everybody has the right to have redemption. Um,
Okay.
that, yeah.
Um,
Oh, I thought you had a question.
so Rage Creek is an
Yes,
era movie. Oh, I
it
like
is.
that. So the costumes must be like the 1800s. I like that. This kind of costume. All right. It's an era movie. And I like the setting because the setting is
Yeah.
something like 1865. Wow, fantastic.
Well, yeah,
And
it's
you
actually
said
set.
in your synopsis, um,
Yes,
you said that Rage Creek is a film about the end of a conflict. Wow. Okay.
yes.
Well,
So
what made
this
you
film takes place
mm,
this film takes place the day before, the day of, and the day after the
mm,
Civil War.
mm,
So the day before it ends, the
mm,
day that it ends, and the day after it ends. But
mm.
because we didn't have the internet back in the 1860s,
Correct.
people would not find out for days and days and days if something happened, because the fastest thing we had in the United States to send messages was the telegraph. So
Yes.
that that was good, but getting the word out to people took a while.
Mm-mm.
And the story centers around a group of men who are Confederate soldiers, being
Mm-hmm.
from the South, who are marching a group of soldiers from the North, the Union,
Mm-hmm.
uh, down to a place called Andersonville in Georgia. And Andersonville was the most horrendous prisoner of war camp ever to be on American soil. It was
Mm.
akin to Auschwitz or one of the other really bad concentration camps or one of the gulags in Soviet Russia. So it
Mm.
was a really bad place. The conditions were horrible, and this is about the men and their understanding, coming to grips with what's going on, and also stopping at this farm because some of the men are injured. They stop at the farm to rest for a couple of days,
Mm-hmm.
and things take place like they find out the war has ended.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's a struggle because they've invaded the space of this woman, Azalene, who's the main character. Pardon. Azalene is the main character, and she has two sons, and her husband has been gone for a couple of years fighting the war. And even though they're in the South right now, when he comes back home from the war, we find out that he was actually a Union soldier.
Mm.
So it's a big twist. And what's wonderful about this is that years and years and years ago, back in the 1950s, my mother, who is a writer, wrote a screenplay called Victory, and it starred two very unknown actors at the time. One man was named Gary Collins, who ended up doing some films and TV, but ended up doing like talk shows and like that eventually. And then another actor who was very unknown at the time, and they said he didn't have the right look to be a star, and his name was Jack Nicholson. And it was about a Union soldier, Jack Nicholson, and
Mm.
a Southern soldier, Gary Collins, having to
Mm-hmm.
work together to save each other and themselves. And this film, Rage Creek, is very similar to that in the fact that if we don't find a way to come together,
Mm-hmm.
all going to find destruction of ourselves and others. And this picture is, um, I left film about 5 years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
decided that I was done. I've done more than 50 years in the film business, and I decided that I was just done with being in film. So when I got this script, and I've gotten scripts, I get scripts all the time. People saying, "Hey, would you produce this? Would you look at this? Would you do this, that, or the other?"
Mm-hmm.
And the answer always is, send me the first 10 pages. And if I want to read any more, I'll ask you for the rest. Well, I got the first 10 pages, and about 8 minutes later, I was sending an email to the writer saying, send me the rest. And with the rest of the script was a nice long email from the director who said, we were suggested to get in touch with you and that you would be the perfect person to produce a film like this
Mm-hmm.
because you had that kind of touch where you can really get into the people stories and you understand dynamics between people. So
Mm-hmm.
I was excited when I got this. They were excited to get me. And I'm extremely excited because um, we're talking with a bunch of different actors, and we have some real interest from some people. And my producing partner, his name is John Haddady. John Haddady is the man who got all of the money for Orion Pictures, or put the deals together, and he put the deals together for Miramax Films for all of their films, including all the Oscar-winning films they did.
Mhm.
And then he went to Entertainment Partners, where he's been putting together funding for films for the past 10 or 15 years, something like that.
Mhm.
And what what he said is, this is a film that I would certainly come on and produce with you.
Mhm.
And so we've been wanting to do a picture for a long time. And so he came on. And our director of photography is the only woman in the world ever to be on the board of the American Society for Cinematographers, which is a huge honor, but it's because she's won pretty much every other award you can win. She just needs
Mhm.
to win her Oscar, and she's an amazing woman. We've been wanting to do some work together for a very long time, and for years and years. And then the director that we have, his name is Colin Thays, and Colin has, even though he's a relatively young man in his 40s, or just 40 years old, thereabouts,
Mhm.
he's done a ton of films. He's directed and produced. And then our writer, Gordon Scott Christian, uh, pardon, Gordon, I'm sorry, Scott Richards.
Mhm.
Scott Gordon Richards. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I'm dyslexic and I screw things up all the
Mhm.
time. Uh, anyway, Scott wrote this, and I asked him how long he's lived in the South, because he really got the vernacular and a lot of the things um, that only a Southerner would know to say. He got all of that correct.
Mhm.
I asked him, how long have you lived in the South? And he said, I'm a Canadian and I have not been to the South. And I
Mhm.
was like, how did you do this?
Mhm.
And it's because of the creativity that he has. Um, Scott Gordon Richards has as a writer. He is amazing and phenomenal, and he's quick. And you can say, do this, and he does this. Say, do that, he does that, and he makes it all work so beautifully. And
Mhm.
this picture is going to be something that everyone is going to say, I want to see that again and again
Mhm.
and again.
Mhm.
So I'm really excited about everything that's going on,
Mhm.
and the team that we've put together and the people that are excited to be part of it. And even one of the premier, in fact, I would say the premier bonding agency in the world is working with us on
Mhm.
our completion bond. So
Mhm.
we're going to be we're going to be sitting pretty when it comes to having that, because they're already on board. So that's usually
All
something that,
right. So when are you premiering this movie?
well, first we have to shoot the film.
Mm.
The film is going to be shooting in April of 2026. So we'll
Mm.
shoot from the beginning of April into the
You need
month
a
of May.
cast. Mm.
I don't think it would work real well
Mm.
if you were in the South back then, because it was very much a Caucasian world in
Oh
the South back
yeah,
then.
you're right.
So,
Mm.
but maybe another picture.
Yes,
That would be
yes.
good.
Don't forget.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you said you had some questions for me.
Right. Now I would like uh, I think this is more of a parallelism. This is a parallelism, a very classic movie. Um, this, I think, what changes through the years and through decades, what changes is only the characters, you know,
Correct.
but the situations. are
Mhm.
all similar. There's
Yeah, very
hatred,
much.
there's greed, there's ego, there's and all those would result to chaos. Now it says here that as a Christian man, you always would wish, to bring down the kingdom of God on earth. Um, so um, you said like your movie Rage Creek is about finding common ground and overcoming hate,
Yeah.
standing on principles and surviving. Now, what are those common grounds that people try? Because maybe we should learn from history, and since this is an era movie that has something to do with history, then what are those principles that we need to apply in order for us to find a common ground and for us to stop fighting?
The most important thing that anyone can do anytime
Mm,
is to do what we're doing right now. We're
mm,
talking,
mm,
not writing. We're not sending messages. We're
mm.
not sending a letter or an email. We're
Not
talking.
posting.
Correct. We're talking face to face.
Mm,
We're hearing the inflection of each other's voice.
mm,
We're listening to each other.
mm,
And the world has stopped talking. The
mm.
world doesn't talk to each other. They talk at people. The
Yeah.
new the news stopped being the news when I was a child.
Mm,
Dan Rather was never a newsman. Dan
mm,
Rather was um, an opinion guy, and he was
mm,
one.
mm,
And it's unfortunate
mm,
because he was. I mean, he's a brilliant man. He's done a lot
mm,
of great work,
mm,
but to call an expose news
mm,
is wrong.
mm,
To have people tweet mean things
mm,
is wrong.
mm,
To say you're an idiot or, you this or you that, or because you're not like me, you're this, or
mm,
you're a racist.
mm,
I'm a racist because I don't like bubble gum. Okay. I
mm,
don't understand that, but
mm,
whatever. Um, People throw terms around that they don't even know.
mm.
Quite honestly, vocabulary has shrunk down to a few hundred words.
You're correct. Yeah.
People don't speak proper English. I mean, read the encyclopedias
Mm,
from A to Z.
mm,
Read the dictionary from A to
mm,
Z if they
mm,
can even read.
mm.
There are people who don't sit down and read books anymore.
Yes, it's
People
true. In
don't
fact,
study history.
I came, we are in the West, and I've met some people who are British, who are Americans, whose vocabulary is very simple. Um, yeah, I mean, not everyone, but
Oh,
I'm not generalizing.
yeah.
But on the other hand, there are also some we call the non-native English speakers who really write impeccably, who express themselves fluently and fluidly. And so I think the world had changed since 1865. So yeah, what was the unifying factor, in 1865 might still be the same unifying factor during this century. I think what were the issues during the time and what are the issues during this time? I don't think there's any difference. Still
I don't
about
I don't
economy,
think there's
still about differences in principles, still about greed, still about ego, and still about lack of spirituality among ourselves.
absolutely. Well, I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but there are more slaves in the Western world today than there were in the 1700s or 1800s because there are children, and most of the slaves are between the ages of 5 and 14.
Mm-hmm.